The Unwanted, Chapter 8. The two markets facing Saigon River teemed with confused and nervous people. These bazaars stood side by side, separated by a small street that was always thick with soggy mud and unkept with garbage. The first market sold mainly fresh food, from vegetables to livestock to fresh fish. The second one offered a variety of dried food in large quantities, such as rice and spices, along with fabrics, coals, and firewood. Even though tension permeated the market's atmosphere, the exchange of goods still took place in an orderly fashion under the watchful eyes of soldiers. People talked to each other in between purchases to find out information. The buzz of their whispers made it sound as if the air were filled with flies. It did not take Luan long to make her first contact. By the entrance of the second market, she found a family of 5 looking for a way to get back to Cam Ranh Bay, a city near Nha Trang. These people had been unable to secure transportation. They were planning on traveling by foot for more than 400 kilometers through deadly swamps and jungles where a lot of booby traps remained from the war. After hearing their plan, Luan wished them good fortune and pulled us deeper into the market. All morning, we walked through the crowd searching for a ride. My mother was out of breath, her face pale. My grandfather occasionally fell behind, since his hip bothered him with each step. Each time we stopped in front of a group of people to ask for information, the reaction we received was the same. They all looked at us dumbly at first, then smiled with courteous sincerity. If they knew of an escape, their knowledge would remain hidden behind their smiles before they too disappeared into the crowd. Just as we were about to lose hope, we stumbled upon Mrs. Tam's herbal medicine corner, which displayed a basket of dried flowers, plant roots, and wood chips. She sat behind a mountain of herbs, surrounded by customers seeking a share of her cures. Her voice raised above the noise of the crowd to catch every passerby's attention. "What are you looking for?" she screamed. "This is for nausea and vomiting. Boil 2 cups down to 1. This one is for inner or outer hemorrhoids. Take it with food twice a day. This one is for the treatment of coughing." As she spotted my mother, who stared at her with anger, she waved the crowd to silence. Looking at my mother, she said, "Hey, old dear, where did I know you?" "Oh, yes, I remember. You are the mean birdie with a knocked-up belly. How are things? You don't look so good." "Guess how things are," my mother retorted. "Look at me. You sold me your fake herbs, old crone. I'm glad I found you here because I want my money back." The old woman stood up between her leaves and barks and pointed a finger at my mother. "Are you crazy asking for your money back? My drugs are fine. It's you that are fake. Didn't I warn you many times that it might not work? Is it any fault of mine that you all get yourselves knocked up?" She narrowed her eyes with suspicion at my mother and Luan. "The mistress and her servant. You two are sharing the same man, aren't you? Don't lie to this old woman. Some gigolo must have grabbed both of you like a pair of chopsticks. By the way, why are you still hanging around town? I thought your pompous behind should be hauled back home by now." My mother was boiling with rage. No one ever dared to speak to her that way before. She was humiliated as the crowd around her turned to stare and whisper at us. Standing next to her, as calm as a lake in the absence of wind, Luan answered the old woman's questions. "We can't find a ride back home. Do you know of any way, Mrs. Tam?" "Of course I know." The old woman arched her back. "I know everything about this town. Why should I help that pompous mayor? She tickled my angry bone the very first day I met her ugly face, giving me nothing but grief." Luan then bent down to pick up my brother and me, setting us on her hips. "Then please help these children," she said to the herbalist. "They are innocent. For the good karma of your next life, Please, find them a way home." The woman looked at us. Slowly, the wrinkles on her face began to relax as her anger abated. She spoke again. This time her voice softened. 200 dong for the lead and 500 for the tickets. Cash only. My mother cried out in astonishment. 700 dong? Are you a blood-sucking thief? 400 is all I have. For everything, or you forget it. Hey, mad horse, I don't deal with you. The old woman waved her finger at my mother. Then she pointed at Luan. But I'll deal with this child. She is a smart girl. Luan said to the old lady, "Mrs. Tam, you've heard the mistress. We only have 400 dong to spend." "Okay, fine, because of the youngsters." She clapped her hands. "I'll show you a way out. I close the shop at 3:30. Meet me back here with your money and your suitcases all ready because old Tam waits for no one." She returned to the crowd. We stood there stunned. Then my mother beckoned for us to head home. As we were walking away, I could still hear the old lady's voice advertising her goods. "What is it that you're looking for, sir? How about you, madam? This is a drug that cures all diseases. Take it with an empty stomach, twice a day for 1 day, and you will be feeling 20 all over again." At Mrs. Tam's instruction, we met her back at her shop at 3:30, taking with us a few bags of clothing. She was waiting for us. All of her medicines were stored into hand-woven bamboo chests. Each chest had a long handle, which Mrs. Tam hooked with a wooden cane. And with her shoulder under the pole, she strained to lift her merchandise up off the ground in one breath. Walking towards us and carrying her goods in this fashion, Mrs. Tam threw a small bag toward Luan. Then she signaled for us to follow her. Without looking back at us, Mrs. Tam asked Luan, "Do you have the money with you?" "Yes, we do. Where are you taking us? And what is in this bag you gave to me?" Luan asked. "Hold that for later. I'm taking you to your ride," was all she said. We walked for almost an hour, carrying our luggage with great difficulty as the city disappeared behind us. As we moved into the surrounding ghettos, big buildings slowly gave way to tin shacks. Along the banks of the river which circled Saigon, many of the shacks stood on stilts that rose from the water. At the outskirts of the city, we left the slums behind, and endless rice fields appeared before our eyes, stretching to the horizon. Just when my mind began to dull, Mrs. Tam decided to stop. In front of us stood a communist military base, surrounded by barbed wire and open grass fields. We stepped away from the old lady in a panic. A herd of soldiers came out, most of them not a day over 18. They held their guns in warning as they saw us getting closer. Many of them recognized the old lady. To her, they shouted happily, "Mother Tam, how are you? Have you got anything for us?" My mother was too fearful to speak. She held on to my arm. Luan asked the old woman, "What is going on? Did we do something to offend you?" "Relax," the old lady muttered. "I am taking you to your ride. Just pipe down and let me handle things." To the soldiers, she smiled. "I bring you some pork buns, my sons." Turning to Luan, she ordered, "Give the comrades the food, darling." "What food?" whispered Luan to Mrs. Tam. "The bag I gave you earlier. Give it to them," the old woman whispered back to her. The soldiers took the bag from Luan's hand. They tore the pork buns away from the oily wrappers and ate them quickly. When the food was gone, they looked at her and smiled. The whitish residue of the bread stuck between their teeth. "Who are the people with you, Mama?" they asked. "These fine people are my friends who are in need of a ride to Nha Trang. Are there any troops leaving town this evening that can accommodate them?" One soldier volunteered the information. "Yes, as a matter of fact, there are. For you, Mother Tam, anything is possible. Platoon 306 is headed to Huey at 8 o'clock tonight. The truck can drop them off in Nha Trang tomorrow afternoon. That is, if your friends want to wait right here. You know we can't take them inside the base, right? Right. Thank you, son. Excuse me for a second while I give these people the instructions, yes? Sure, Mama. She turned to us and lowered her voice. Look, I found you a ride. These are sweet kids, and they won't give any trouble. Stay right here in one group where they can see you and don't make any sudden moves because curfew is coming soon. Now give me the money. Where are you going? You can't leave us here like this, my mother said. I can't stay with you. I have to get home before curfew. You just have to trust me, lady. My mother reached into her blouse for the sack of money hidden in her bra. Without letting the soldiers see what she was doing, Mrs. Tam snatched the cash. As fast as it had appeared, the money vanished again. Where are our tickets? My mother asked the old lady. Oh, no ticket. Don't worry about it. You are all set. I can't believe this. You are cheating us again, aren't you? My mother swallowed. You said earlier that it would be 500 dong for the tickets, but instead you took us here in front of a military base before these guns, telling us to wait for a ride that is way past curfew time. How can we trust you in a situation like this? I said don't worry about it. It's all set. The woman spat a stream of phlegm on the ground. I am doing you all a huge favor. How dare you question me in such a manner? Do I want to do business with you? Why don't you just shut up before I lose my patience? She glared at my mother disdainfully. How did you get to know these soldiers? My grandfather asked the lady, ignoring my mother. Get to know them? What a question. I want you to know that they are all my children. I have been raising and taking care of hundreds of these boys the last 10 years, right under your capitalist noses, the woman said, smiling scornfully. You see, poor folks like myself could, and as a matter of fact, did get very close to the Viet Cong. You might even say that I am one of the Cong's mothers, and many of these fine boys are my babies. Now, if you excuse me, my job here is done. I must get going before it gets dark. Enjoy your trip. She turned to the soldiers to bid them farewell. Despite her age, Mrs. Tam seemed to have no problem handling the chests on her shoulders. From the top of her lungs, she sang an ode about a hero who died during the war as she marched down the street and disappeared into the dusty afternoon.